If you want some podcast.
One.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Outdoor Drive Podcast. This is your buddy Trev, and
Steven?
Ghost?
what's up, fellas?
Same old, just swimming along.
Just strunging along, I guess. What did you say? You say strunging along?
Just swimming along.
Oh, swimming along.
Swim.
All this water conversation got me just keep swimming type mentality.
Just waves smashing over the back, just enjoying it.
You can have your waves. I'll take the riffles and the rapids.
It's getting a little salty around here.
Yeah, all night. Just we didn't talk. Well, we did talk about a little bit of hunting and a little bit of turkey hunting, a little bit of bird hunting, but mostly fish.
Yeah, but what concerns me is Trev said it was salty and you said all night. Just saying.
Hey, one time I got sprayed real bad in the face by a squid.
I remember that.
And he looked right at me, and he's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "It's so fucking salty," and it was bad, man. And so I know how they feel.
That was a good twist.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Right. Oh, we've been so now it's Friday, and we just pulled out a double because me having to go up north to go moose shed hunting, I forced everybody to do a double podcast tonight. So we had Mike Roy on, who was the Monday episode, and then now we have Judd from Eastern Current on this podcast. So we've kind of gone hard real here and done a double. So these guys have really fished out.
Man, that's been good. Said the first one was, more your cup of tea. This one was a really good mix of what y'all do and what I do. Just had a little more saltwater inland than, he was the perfect in between of what I do and what you do is really how I see it.
He's just an all around great outdoorsman, sportsman. All the way from the fishing to the hunting. I mean, what'd you guys think of it? Like, what was the kind of things you guys are a little bit quiet? I mean, a little bit, didn't really say much. So what you guys are taking in from it?
I'm listening. Well,
go ahead.
Well, and he's just listening to him real quick. I mean, I thought we were talking about fishing, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm guiding for my first year for waterfowl," and I'm like, "What?" Just blew my mind, and I knew it blew yours, and just listening to him talk about that passion and the drive, what he loves so much about fishing, but now he's going to take it into another, avenue, and he just, loves conservation and just drilling home certain ideas and philosophies with conservation. It's just hard not to just want to listen to more. And it was awesome. I got a lot out of just like him as a person. I mean, guy's got it going on. It's fucking pretty awesome.
Yeah, he's there. He's basically abandoned everything else to do what he wants to do. He's fishing, he's hunting, he's guiding, he's making a living off of it. I mean, he's doing it. It was a really good conversation and listening to how everything progressed, all the different varieties of things he does. That was the other thing that caught me is, he's like us. It's not a I live for this season. It's I live for every season.
Right. Yeah, he's a true outdoor junkie.
Yeah, for sure.
And he really goes through it all, man. I mean, as far as the red fishing, the spotted trout, and the cobia, and I mean, there's just a list of them, man. And I don't even think I think we just scratched the surface of what Judd actually does.
Oh yeah. Well, people can dig in and get a little more information off of him from his show. So they'll be able to really see in depth what we scratch the surface on.
For sure. And it's definitely, one of those podcasts that you just love, man. It's just all over the place. It's just good old deer camp talk about hunting, fishing, and being a steward of the land.
Definitely.
Tarpon hookups, shooting ducks, fucking redfish,
fly fishing,
speckled trout,
kayaking.
It's crazy because he kind of like, it was kind of like a little bit of a takeover moment there where he was asking us questions, which is
Yeah.
cool. It's fun, man. I'm all about it.
Yep, it was nice.
And I don't think that it's going to be the last time that you hear Judd and us together.
Oh, no. I got a feeling after this conversation, there's going to be some definite future interaction.
Yeah, man.
So make sure you guys get over there, subscribe, like, share, check him out, and also go on and subscribe, like, share our social media platforms, our YouTube page, because we got a lot coming out on that and doing a lot of things there. And we're always looking for that 5-star review on iTunes.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, brother, let's say a few thanks to some of the partners, and let's get into this thing.
Absolutely, man. Why don't we thank Nor'easter Game Calls, nor'eastergamecalls.com. Good old Mock up there at Nor'easter Game Calls, making them turkey pot calls, them grunt calls, the squirrel calls, the crow calls, you name it, he makes it. Custom too, the Mab knives. So make sure to check them out over there at nor'eastergamecalls.com. Also, Wild Edge, wildedgeinc.com for your step ladder and the leader in mobile hunting. Make sure to check them out. wildedgeinc.com. Also, Broadside Camo, the Ascender series, the Versa Light, the Versa, you name it. It is all there at broadsidecamo.com. Make sure to use, Steve, what's the promo code on that one?
Outdoor Drive 10.
All right. Make sure you use that promo. Save yourself some. So also Wicked Twisted Bowstrings, wickedtwistedbowstrings.com. Make sure to use promo code Outdoor Drive 10. I was hoping Steve was going to jump in on that.
I was waiting on Ghost.
I'm sorry.
I thought we were
all
going
waiting
round
on
robin
each
here.
other.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all right. It's all right. I guess I can't lean on you guys too much. I was just
My
trying to
bad.
surprise you. Also check out who else are we checking out? I'm bad
Death
at
Wish
this, man.
Coffee.
Death Wish
Oh,
Coffee.
I always forget about Death Wish. Man. How
Cracking
do
a
you
cup.
Forget about them.
because it's not only cracking a cup, man, but it just gets me just off the charts. So I forget about a lot of things. Deathwishcoffee.com. Check them out. Fueled by Death. Deathcast, the amazing Jeff over there at on their podcast. So make sure to check them out. Use promo code OutdoorDrive10 to save yourself 10% off of the world's strongest coffee. And also, last but not least, Hunter's Site, huntersite.com. Make sure to get over there, check them out. You'll be hearing a lot from us, and you will be hearing from Bryce Stone himself here on the podcast coming up in the next couple of weeks. So you guys really can hear about what the Hunter Site is actually about. And actually, last but not least, the myth, the man, the ginger legend, Gary Hall from D&M Custom Arrows, dmarrows.com. Check him out on Instagram, Facebook, so on and so forth. Check out some of his cool and amazing arrows.
Yes, sir.
Boom.
So that's it.
Well, I don't know about y'all, but let's dive in.
Go for a ride.
Nice shot. Here comes a shooter. Shooter. Big buck.
Stack.
All right, man. We're back on the phone with the man, the myth, the legend from Eastern Current. How are you, bud?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We appreciate you
Definitely.
taking the time to hang out with us, dude.
Yeah, for sure. I checked y'all out a little bit and just super excited. I think it's cool. I think that's one of the cool things about podcast is kind of like podcasting with other podcasters. I didn't even realize that was going to be a thing until I got into it, but it's I think y'all probably seen it too. Just the networking that comes through this is like worth all of it.
Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
The brotherhood
So-
of it and just working together and just talking. I mean, we all like to talk. That's why we podcast, right?
You do.
Exactly.
Hey, watch
I
your
love
mouth
how
when
the
you're
sound of my
talking.
voice.
But why don't we turn this key, man, get this drive underway? Why don't you tell them who you are, where you're from, and what you do, man?
Yeah, my name's Judd Brock. I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. It's the East Coast here, and do a lot of fishing and hunting. Mostly, more so fishing. I'm a full time fishing guide here, and just kind of got back into guiding hunts. But my main focus is saltwater fishing here on the coast of North Carolina. I do a lot of inshore, shallow water sight fishing and light tackle fishing. Do a lot of fly fishing. Kind of started the whole guiding thing just because got into guiding because of my love for fly fishing, and then kind of realized, wow, I love all kinds of fishing. I love, I always tell clients, like, I could have just as much fun catching a carp on a piece of bread as a sailfish on a fly rod. I just like it all. And so that's kind of me. I've guided all over down in Louisiana, here in North Carolina and Montana and Alaska, and North Carolina's home, and I just love our fishery here. I love our state, and it's got a lot to offer. But that's kind of my backstory.
So, like,
Nice.
where did it all begin for you, man? Like, did you start at a young age and then get into it full fledged, or did you start at older?
Yeah, I started at a young age. My dad always fished. He wasn't he fished at a decently serious level, but nothing too crazy. But I grew up, trolling with him off the beach and offshore fishing. I never did any inshore fishing with him. And then, I think the inshore fishing started just because it was like growing up here on the coast. It was my way of my freedom to go hop on the small boat and go slide out in the marsh and, kind of get away and explore. And that's where I kind of fell in love with it in middle school, chasing redfish and trout and flounder, and wasn't very successful at it, but it was like, I'm going to go hop on the boat and go do my own thing for a couple hours. And, it started to learn one thing and another thing, kind of piecing it all together. And, before I knew it, I was like, any second I had, I was hopping on the boat to go fish. And then in high school, like I said, it got real serious. And then even more so in college, and had had one roommate that me and him, I mean, I don't know how I didn't finish school. I don't know how he finished school, because we were skipping so much class to go fishing. But yeah, that was kind of I started at a young age for sure. I'm kind of rambling there, but
No, you're good.
It's always been in my blood.
Yeah, no, you get all jacked up and pumped about it, and that's just the way it goes, man. You just start going on about it. So, like, so with I mean, obviously, we're from the northern part of the East Coast, and your fishery is totally different, man. And like, why don't you go into like some of the different fish that you fish for down that way on the southern part of the East Coast?
Yeah, for sure. So my bread and butter is redfish. That's kind of my main focus, and there's so many ways to catch redfish. It's crazy. They're really cool fish just because of how versatile they are. But I mean, you can catch them in 4 inches of water with their eyeballs and backs out of the water, cruising down the bank, busting shrimp, and you can catch them in 60 feet of water on a live bait rig or a cut bait rig, Carolina rig we call it here, and they're crazy. You can catch them up on the surface on top water. You can catch them, all with a spinnerbait on the bottom. They're just really cool, versatile fish. The other cool thing about them is how hardy they are. They can. I've caught those fish in Louisiana where I've thrown a fly to them, and I'm like, why is that fly not sinking? I pick it up, throw it to them again, and I realize that there's a sheen of ice over the top of the water. And as soon as they slide off underneath the ice, throw the fly to them, and they crush it. And I've also caught them in 93-degree water in the summer.
Right.
Just busting shrimp. And so they're crazy fish, man. They're just really, really cool fish.
And for anyone out there wondering, yes, there is ice in Louisiana on occasion.
On occasion. More often than you'd think, honestly, in the wintertime.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be there for a day or two. But speckled trout, flounder, those are the inshore fish. I target black drum a little bit. And then, there's a huge variety of fish off the beach. But the near shore stuff I really like to focus on are cobia and the tarpon that we have migrate through.
And a lot is that more of a light tackle situation when you're fishing for those, or is it? Because when I think of tarpon or I think of cobia, I'm thinking like, well, especially cobia, I'm thinking like oil rigs offshore.
Yeah, you can catch them on heavy tackle. I mean, I'm throwing like a 8-foot medium heavy rod or medium fast rod. So it's got it's light tackle for that size fish. It's not super overpowered, but light tackle is kind of the deal, especially when you're sight fishing those fish. You need something that's pretty nimble to be able to cast and put it, on a plate at 70, 80 feet. So light tackle for it's not like a light tackle trout rod, but it's a light tackle for a tarpon or a cobia.
And
Right.
what kind of techniques are you using to catch those fish? Like, are you like baits or like different kinds of baits? I don't even know, man. I'm like lost. For the first time in my life, when you talk fishing, I'm lost. So
I know. I'm kind of enjoying this moment. He usually has me in this boat. And now
Yeah.
you start talking tarpon. So one thing that's always been, one of my bucket lists is I want to hook into a good tarpon and have the fight. So
Yeah, man, they're an addictive fish, and there's so many ways to catch tarpon as well. I mean, that you can catch them all sloppy on the bottom on cut bait. You can throw a tiny little fly to them and catch them on a fly rod. But here in North Carolina, they're kind of like and I don't like to talk about them too much because people know we have them. But there's very few people that really get out there and spend the time to learn how to catch them.
well, it's kind of like the sturgeon here in Virginia.
Yeah, exactly, and it's kind of like that holy grail, and you realize with the time you put in that all these fish are creatures of habit, and there's stuff they do year after year and day after day, and you start to put the little pieces of the puzzle together, and it becomes easier and easier. But my main focus for the tarpon here in North Carolina is I really like to sight fish. That's not necessarily the best way to catch them, but I like to put myself in places and scenarios where I might have the shot to see a fish and throw to it and watch him eat. Come tight, and that's what it's all about. Fighting them is fun for about 3 minutes, and then you're like, all right.
Then it wears you out.
And then it wears you out, and you're like, I'm just gonna break this one off. Let's go see if we can catch another one. No, it's definitely worth fighting one and holding them, grabbing them in the face. Please don't pull a tarpon into your boat if you ever catch one on purpose or by accident. It's really tough for them to survive after that.
Absolutely.
Keep them there in the water. You can hold their lower jaw and keep their face underwater, and they're just such cool creatures. You look them eye to eye, that 100-pound fish, 120-pound fish, and it's that to me, that's the most addicting thing. But like you asked what I do down here, my main, like what gets me fired up is sight fishing of any kind. So, but yeah, y'all have to come down and do some tarpon fishing sometime.
Oh, for sure. Don't open that. Don't open that.
Yeah. So I gotta ask,
go ahead.
What's it like fighting a tarpon on a fly line?
Honestly, so fighting fish is all about, it's an angle game. And so a fly rod can be just as effective of a tool to fight the fish as any spinning rod if you know how to position the rod and how to pull. And so a lot of people, when fighting a fish, they want to keep that rod up, where if there was no tension on the line, the rod tip would be pointing at the sky. And pull kind of back like that. But if you do that with any rod, I mean, granted, if you've got like a 50 wide, offshore rod and you're doing that, you can put a lot of pressure. But any type of spinning setup or fly setup, if you pull straight up and back like that, it's very hard if you hook the end of your line onto a scale to get more than 3 pounds of pressure on that scale. And so what you really want to do is point the rod straight at whatever you're hooked up to, and flex at the butt of the rod. So you're really trying to keep the front of the rod pointed and get all the bend to just be like, maybe an inch or 2 inches of bend right there above the cork. And you can get 11, 12, 13 pounds of pressure that way.
Okay.
And so with the fly rod, it's easier because of the way that reel's set up, and you can kind of palm the reel a little bit to hit that 13 pounds of pressure, as opposed to a spinning rod. It's a little bit tougher, but that's the angle that you really need for fighting those fish. And it's easier said than done when you're fighting that fish. You think you're putting a lot of pressure on them because it's hard for you, but someone could be standing on the other end of your line, kind of just pinching your line with their fingertips, and you're not going to be able to pull it out of their hand, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's a fun test. If you're ever, bored, go try it in your yard.
That actually sounds really friggin' fun.
Yeah. It's very
like
interesting.
Looking at freight train.
It is.
I lived in Key West for a year, and we tarpon fished twice on a pier. And it was actually a pier. We weren't actually targeting tarpon, but you go down the pier, everyone's throwing ballyhoo and chunk baits and, shrimp baits and catching little snappers. And it just got dusk, and this guy just rips into this. It was probably like a 70-pound tarpon.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a 70-pound fish lose control like that and then cross over 50 other lines on the pier and just scream and then pop off. And it was just the excitement. Like, I could totally get what you mean by, I just want to hook this thing, fight it for a few minutes, break it off, and then just go get another one. because it's like that aggressive bite that these creatures present is just, it's unreal. So
It's so unreal.
never really landed one, but I've seen a couple of really aggressive hookups, and it's just
I think
badass.
that's what's so intriguing about tarpon is just that first 30 seconds of like the bite, the hookup, how nuts those fish go. It's crazy. And someone said it to me one time, and I've really kind of taken it to kind of, I always wonder why I'm so obsessed with fishing and like what it is that draws me in so much. And obviously, just like y'all, it's the outdoors, one, being outside. But I think the real addiction is like, I forget who said this the first time when I heard it, but the split second between like when a fish eats and your brain registers that the fish just ate and you set the hook, that like amount, the dopamines that are released there, the excitement of like, oh, there it is, that I think that's what keeps you coming back to fishing and hunting. It's hunting as well, definitely fishing, surprise factor, that like, oh my gosh, it happened again factor, the tarpon just ate my fly, no freaking way. And that's what I'm hooked on.
Oh, you bet, man. Definitely get
Absolutely.
So like what kind of, why don't you bring us into the Eastern Current part of it and what you do as a podcaster and what the whole show is about?
Yeah, definitely. Eastern Current is a saltwater and mainly focused on inshore fishing, but saltwater or inshore and nearshore saltwater fishing podcast that I started a little under a year ago. And for me, I've always been really interested in content creation. I've never been great at it with the video side of things. Just the discipline was really hard to continually create videos. And
I hear you.
A lot of it started with me being, when I first started guiding, the marketing side of things wasn't very competitive. And so I was able to run some Google ads and do a few other things and post in some Facebook groups and see my business grow through that. But then all that, Facebook got real competitive and Google ads, everyone runs Google ads now. And so I was like, what can I do to kind of put myself ahead? And I'd always been interested in a podcast and talked with a buddy that used to do it with me and, or that I started the podcast with, and he was kind of interested as well. And so we started it up and I just fallen in love with doing it and the networking of it all. And the amount of stuff I've learned bringing on different guests, and it's really cool. And I love teaching too. I think that's one of my favorite parts about guiding is seeing somebody, have that aha moment of what they might be doing wrong or what they need to do next, and being able to do that, online through a podcast and share that with people that they can use it over and over again, has been cool. And it's a tricky line. I have a lot of people now reach out and ask for fishing spots sometimes and ask too much. It's like there's still part of that needs to be, you got to learn some of it yourself to really respect it and appreciate it. But I think that, these helping with tactics and ideas and tackle and that kind of stuff is just a great way for us to build a community around fishing. And my big argument, I've had people come and say like, why do you share all this information with people here? And my thought behind it all is really what it's become. This wasn't what it was at first. Is the more successful anglers we have on the water, the louder of a voice we're going to have for conservation. So the more people that are out there seeing how fun this is, they want their kids to do it. They want their kids to do it. It's like they're going to be the ones that stand up for conservation in our state and on the East Coast and across the world. So that's kind of what it's boiled down to for me.
That's badass, man. That's something that a lot of people don't have, because a lot of people try to stay in that realm of not telling everybody because it like you said, it's turned into that whole thing when people are looking for that instant gratification when it comes to fishing.
Right.
So I think that what you're putting out there for content is definitely a very helpful thing because if not, back 10 years ago, you couldn't have social media to find it. You would have to hire a guide and spend money to find out and figure out how to do these things.
Right. Or just spend the hours and hours and hours on the water that y'all and myself do to figure things out too. Yeah. Lots of hours of failing for that 1 hour of succeeding.
Yeah. Right. And people don't want to do that. So that, the what we do as podcasters and have this information out to people, it's very important. It's become,
I think it really is
a little bit easier.
For sure. It's this, you got to be careful too. Cause it's like you've got you've got this platform now that people are listening and you got to make sure that, you're keeping everybody happy. Like the people that have learned themselves and the people that are learning now through your podcast. And so it's kind of a tight rope you've got to walk to hopefully keep both sides happy.
And I bet you that's like that as a guide also.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's, everyone, you're kind of exploiting the resource there as well, through guiding. And it's just, I like the podcast because it gives me the ability to kind of voice my opinion and show my true, heart behind all of it, instead of people just being able to make up what they think about me as a guide or me as an angler or me as an outdoorsman. So
definitely.
Sorry, I'm drinking an ice cold glass of lemonade here. If y'all keep hearing my ice.
Oh, we love it.
You're good, man. You're good.
I'm surprised you haven't heard any beer cracking on our end.
No, I cracked it before we started recording.
Oh, yeah. Oh, if you can make it in an hour? No, I'm just kidding. Oh.
I would have a beer. I had an upset stomach today, but this eliminated it. It's probably not any better. But
no, the acid's probably ain't that good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So in the guiding aspect, man, so you're not only a fishing guide, but a hunting guide also.
Yeah. And I can't say, that I don't feel like I've earned my hunting guide crown yet. I've put a lot of time in on the fishing side of things. I guided some duck hunts and some clapper rail hunts when I first started guiding. And I'm getting back into it now since I used to spend the winters in Louisiana. And now that I'm not doing that anymore, I'll be guiding sea duck hunts throughout the winter. Just kind of pieces together the slow season of fishing here for me. But no one here is really guiding sea ducks. I mean, people guide sea ducks up in the Pamlico Sound above me, but as far as shooting ducks in the ocean, there's no one that I know of doing it below the Outer Banks. And
my friend, you just opened up a rabbit hole.
It's I saw people start to do it this year after I was posting some stuff about it. Maybe they saw me doing it. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they just started to do it the same year. But it's good, man. I mean, this year I've had flocks of over 100 scoters come in, and I mean, we shot a limit of sea ducks out of a white intruder. They're just dumb down here, man. They don't get shot at, so it's pretty fun.
I want to bring it back for a second. You said clapper rail. What is that?
Yeah. So a clapper rail, just imagine a little brown marsh chicken is pretty much what it is. But it's like we get these flood tides a couple times a month where the water gets extra high and floods the Spartina grass. And so it's the same area where you've probably seen videos and stuff of guys chasing tailing redfish in the grass. Okay. You just find the thickest of the grass during the flood tide and pull through that. And these clapper rails will flush out, and they're in quite abundance. And so you shoot those like quail. It's kind of like upland bird hunting off of a flat skiff.
So it's they're virtually a part of the rail family, right?
Yeah, they're part of the
bigger.
Rail. So we've got, I think just the Virginia rail, like the clapper rail is what they call it down here, and then the Sora rail, which is a small one. And I've only shot a few Sora rails. The Virginia clapper rail, or maybe the Virginia rail and clapper rail are different. I don't know my rail species very well.
Okay.
If it's a Virginia rail, that just means it's harder.
Okay. Yeah, they're about the size of a quail. I don't know if.
Okay.
What you'll have certain type of rails up there.
We just call them rails, dude. They could be clapper rails. They could be, I don't know. We just call them rails. I don't really know. It's not something that's very sought after. A lot of our shores are, just loaded with houses. So it makes it very hard. So rail hunting is kind of like obsolete. We don't do a lot of it because, our rail hunting, or snipe hunting, you would have to walk down the beaches or get up on the edges. And a lot of them are now high-rise houses. So it makes it a little bit tougher for us to do it. So a lot of us don't do it. We just sea duck hunt. So.
Right. Y'all have all the fun sea ducks up there too, don't you?
Oh yeah, we have eiders.
You got eiders, yeah. I'm gonna have to come up there and do an eider hunt with y'all.
Yep,
because
more than welcome.
We have a lot of common scoters, and we shoot a good number of surf scoters, and that's about it. I saw a group of eiders this year, and we had a group of longtail old squaw ducks. The longtail ducks or old squaw come in, and we dropped one on the outside edge of the decoys, and we followed that thing around for like 45 minutes trying to kill it and could not kill it. So, but yeah, I mean, we shoot mostly common scoters, but that sea duck hunting is just so fun. It's so cool to be out in the ocean shooting ducks.
And like you said, you shot them out of an intruder. Like we do that up here too. Like we sit in our center consoles and shoot them. I've shot them out of a 36-foot down east before. I mean, they're just
That's
dumb.
awesome.
I mean,
Yeah, they
you're
are dumb.
whack fishing, we're tog fishing off one side of the boat, and the gun's in the gun holder, and just shoot them as they go by. With the long
that's
line
super
out the
cool.
back. But so you guys for sea ducks, that's pretty much it, huh? Just scoters.
Yeah, it's just scoters. We don't have any of the really interesting, to me, the interesting eiders and the old squall and all that, but mostly just scoters. And we'll shoot some divers out there sometimes too, some buffleheads and bluebills and whatnot, but mainly just focused on scoters. There's some great duck hunting on the northern part of our state, on the coast along the Pamlico Sound and whatnot, but a lot of those birds kind of stop there. We don't really see much more on the coast as far as puddle ducks and divers go anymore. You hear from old timers back in the day that you could go out in the marsh here and kind of just pick a limit of whatever you wanted 70 years ago, 60 years ago, but we don't see that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we have the white wings, we have the commons, we have the surfies, a ton of surfies, the eiders, the longtails, and we actually north of us where I hunt, we actually see harlequin all the time.
Do
On a
you?
lot of
That's
them.
awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna be up there. I'm gonna be up there soon.
You can't shoot Harleys though.
You
You can't shoot them. No,
Connecticut's got some of the weirdest laws when it comes to birds. They're not allowed to dove hunt.
Really?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, that is odd.
But we can shoot 5 turkeys,
Yeah.
and do that, but we can't dove hunt.
I know. I would love to be able to shoot 5 turkeys. It wouldn't have made a difference this year, but in years past, it would have been nice. I didn't kill a single freaking bird this year.
You and me
We had
both,
some
man.
rough hunts, man. They just didn't gobble much, and lots of bird sign and seeing birds in fields and not getting them to talk, and it was a frustrating year.
Don't feel bad. It was the same way in Virginia. I actually drug both these guys down here for 7 days, and we hunted harder than I think I've ever hunted turkey in my life, and had some encounters, got close, but never could get the shot. Our season went out yesterday, and I was out 29 times throughout the season and never had a shot.
Oh my gosh! All right, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, it's not just you.
Struggled harder than me.
Virginia was just as bad this year. Something was off. I don't know if it was that break of warm weather we had right before the season or what, but they just weren't popping.
No, they weren't. It was a frustrating season. But we got next year.
Yep.
I'm gonna kill a lot of sea ducks. So I had a question.
Make up for it.
Do y'all have any nicknames for the surf scoters? Do y'all call them skunk heads up there too?
We call them skunk heads or surfies. Yeah.
Surfies, okay. I just always like to hear the different nicknames for birds and fish in different areas. You're both talking about the same fish. Like, no, I've never heard of that one. And then you're like, no, that's actually just a menhaden. And you're like, oh, not a bunker, pogie, menhaden, fatback. There's like all these different names.
So we actually, which we just recorded another podcast with another guide that's local here to Long Island Sound, and
Sweet.
we're talking about porgies. And I said, hold on, we can't say it like that. We have to call them scup so everybody knows across the board what they actually are, because everybody who listens doesn't know what a porgy actually is, because there's such a different change in the names. That's like, like herring here. Some of the blue, not the blueback, is it blue? No, the other herring that we call them. They call them buckies, which other people call Manhattan buckies. So like you have to be careful of what you say and how you say it, because other people just don't understand it when you're talking different terms and names. So I get it.
That was like the first time when I fished up in Boston, they said we got to wait and get some pogies. And I was young. I mean, I was 12, 13 years old. And I'm like, what's a pogie? And we're running around and the guy drops them off. I'm like, oh, they're bunker. I'm like, oh, yeah. I didn't know a pogie was a bunker. But
what do y'all call a really, really big bunker? Is there a word for that?
No.
They call them turbos down here.
Turbos?
Right. Yeah, if you get a really big pogie, like, oh, we got some turbos, man. Let's go king fishing.
You talking like a 2-pounder?
like much larger than your hand, like a big pogey.
We get some pretty big ones down here or up here.
Some turbos.
Yeah, I'm gonna call them turbos now, dude. I'm gonna be in the bay and I'm gonna yell to the next boat, "Yo, we got some turbos over here!" And then you're gonna be like,
What was that guy talking about?
"What are they
Start
looking
a
for?"
trend.
Turbo cast netting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
turbo cast netting. So you mentioned kingfish, man. Is that another fish that's in the area for you?
Yeah, there's a lot of king mackerel here. And it's for me, that's like the fish that I'm wanting to learn how to catch really well this year. I catch kings every year, but I don't really target them. But it seems like every year there's something that I haven't really spent a bunch of time doing that kind of piques my interest. And this year it's been live baiting for kings, and so I'm excited to. We've got a bunch of smaller kings around right now, but some really big fish get caught here each year, and there's some big king tournaments that come through here every year. And I don't want to get that serious with it, but it's just like as an outdoorsman, you're always wanting to kind of push the envelope and learn how to do different stuff and how to do things you've already been doing better. And so this year it's kingfish, and that's going to be my if I got a day off, that's what I'm going to go do.
So we get like a small push of them up towards the Cape in Massachusetts. They show up the King Max, but it's not really something. I mean, some people target them and they're very good at it, but they're very tight-lipped about it and they don't even talk about it. It's kind of like one of those things you just kind of run into. So to hear and I know like the Carolinas, there's just 1,000,001 different fish, man. I'm just so intrigued because like for us, it's fluke fishing, black sea bass, stripers. That's pretty much our summer fishing,
Yeah.
porgies, stuff like that. But for the most part, I mean, we don't have cool
inshore
stuff like you
fishing.
have for inshore fishing.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you start going offshore, and then you get into your tunas and your Eldorados, your mahis, stuff like that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Definitely.
And
So real quick, taking a jump back, what's the difference between a king and a Spanish mac?
Oh,
Do you guys get those down there?
Yeah, we have a Spanish mackerel as well. The Spanish can't get nearly as large. I don't know what the true. I mean, you can definitely catch a king and a Spanish that are the same size. The kings will be just much more of a chrome color with no shade. Like the big thing is the Spanish have these dots on them, these kind of yellowish dots going down their side. A really big Spanish is like 8 pounds, 7, 8, 9 pounds. A really big. I mean, I guess I've never seen, but you could probably catch a 10, 11, 12-pound Spanish.
Yeah, we've pulled a couple 8s out of the Chesapeake up here, and
right on.
To the most part, that's about the extent, besides some striper, that my saltwater career has ever landed. So
Right on.
I'm more of an inland rivers and lakes kind of guy.
Right on. Do you do mostly targeting bass and stuff like that, or what do you target inland?
Mainly out here, our big thing is golden back, so smallies. So we got some of the best smallmouth fishing around, but we've also got between the James River and the Rappahannock, we've got a lot of flathead. We got some yellow, we got some blue cats. Out here on the Shenandoah, particularly, we have a really good trophy set of muskie. So
right on.
If you can bear with it, they don't call it the fish of 1,000 casts for nothing. But when you do get one, it's insane. So we've got a lot of different stuff out here. A lot of people don't even know that there are muskie in the Shenandoah River.
Yeah, I never even heard it.
Yeah. Game and Fish actually puts out trophy muskie. They stock the rivers, and people have a hard time believing that we have giant muskie. But we've actually seen the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries do an electroshock through a stretch of the river and pulled up a 72-incher.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's
there are some
That is
giants
crazy.
in here, but I'm not
insane.
giving away my spots. I'll
Have
put
you,
it that way.
have you caught them pretty good? Is it something you can go and do with somewhat a amount of success?
Oh yeah. If you go out there, the particular stretch that we work on, there will be 8 or 9 record class muskies pulled out of it every year. The goal for me for this year is I want to do it and get one on a kayak.
Oh heck yeah! That'd be sweet.
I mean, either I'll pull it in or it's going to pull me to it.
Y'all will find each other in the middle somewhere. Then.
Exactly.
yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
like for you in the Carolinas, man, are you fishing more like flats? Or are you fishing oil rig? Like, take us through that, man, because it's totally different than what we've
Blackbeard's
all
wreck.
heard of. Or
I only fish Blackbeard's wreck. I'm the only one with the numbers to it, and you catch your limit of whatever you desire every time you go there.
Right. It's a treasure boat, right?
It's the treasure boat, but it depends, man. There's a lot of stuff, but inshore, you don't flats is a term you hear a lot used in different fisheries, but they're not flats per se like you would see in Florida, like big, vast, shallow areas, with maybe it's a big flat, nothing's actually out of the water, but everything's 12 inches deep. We don't really have much of that. It's kind of like these shallow edges and, much smaller flats that we'll target the redfish on. And then we've got a large system of creek or marshes with creeks and little pockets and ponds and bays and stuff that run through there. And I'm targeting the redfish in that a lot. The redfish is more of that shallow water flats fishing, if you will. The other stuff, the trout, the redfish, the striper that we have here, you're fishing creek guts and drop off edges and structure as well. I mean, we don't have oil rigs inshore or anything like that. But any, big structure anywhere for any type of saltwater fishing, game fish hold on large pieces of structure. And
especially
we've got
those
some stuff
cobias
like,
out that way.
yeah, the cobia for sure. There's one old tower, a light tower on the shoal system we've got that fishes really well for cobia and AJs and king mackerel and all kinds of stuff like that. But that's the only real offshore structure we have that you can see on the surface as well. But yeah, a lot of flats fishing, a lot of creek fishing and whatnot. And we've got some really cool coastal rivers that the striper and the shad migrate up. I'll go chase them in the spring and do a bunch of guide trips for them. We actually have, I don't know if y'all have heard of the Roanoke River, which goes up into, I'm sure y'all have heard of the Roanoke River. And those 30% of the East Coast spawning striper population goes up that river.
Right.
Wow.
And so I just got back from that. That's a good fun time. It's a lot of boats, but a lot of fish. It's a cool scenario.
Yeah. What are the techniques that you're using to catch those stripers in that?
A lot of stuff, man. We'll fly fish for them as well as throw jigs and top water. I mean, if you're throwing a spinning rod, kind of bouncing and swinging a jig is the best bet. I'll usually anchor up if I'm spin fishing and kind of pick apart different little edges and seams, different current breaks, and kind of fishing that jig on the bottom and hopping it as it swings around to the back of the boat and current. Same deal with top water, kind of fishing those exact same areas, but that's a morning and evening type of thing. And then with the fly rod, I'll do a lot more drifting. And so you'll kind of be drifting down the river, throw a cast out towards the bank, let it sink for 10 or 15 seconds, and then start stripping the line back in, and you'll catch them on little clousers and baitfish patterns like that pretty well. The Roanoke River at this time of year is a pretty idiot-proof fishery. You can go out there and, if you can get something in the water, you're probably going to catch a fish.
Oh, definitely.
So do y'all do a good bit of striper fishing?
Oh, I mean, that's
the main focus.
Yeah.
That's a pretty dumb question, I guess.
Yeah, well, see, that's our big game fish here on the inshore and in the sound and stuff. Me and Ghost, we do a lot. We have Block Island. We have the sound itself. We have a bunch of islands around there, but a lot of it is deep water reef fishing, deep water, 3-weighing, pogies, bunker, turbos, whatever you want to call them. Or just scupping itself, and just a lot of that live lining. I do a lot of reverse surf casting for them. We just get a big push of them, man. They're just always here, and it's just a big game fish here for us. Other than bottom fishing for black sea bass and fluke and stuff like that.
So, explain to me reverse surf casting.
All right, so everybody always asks that. Is that something that I don't? So reverse surf casting is if I do it a lot around an island. So if there's a big island that has rock jetties, big boulder fields, big, like we were talking about, what we would call flat would be like a sand with like trenches and so on and so forth. And you're literally just working those areas. You're getting the boat in there. So to be like 15 feet or less, and you're working up on the banks of those big areas and just working water plus subsurface plastics, so on and so forth.
Gotcha. That's what I thought you meant. I was like, I hope this isn't a technique I'm just totally missing out on.
Oh no.
But just a different current like we've been talking about.
Yeah, exactly, man. We're just doing it. You know, I do a lot of it at night in these big boulder fields, free floating eels. It's just, I don't know, man. It just works. You know, it's just there's a lot of big fish that hold up in those areas sometimes, and that's the only way to get to them. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
it,
For sure.
it's just, I guess it's the same thing as what you're doing when you're going into those creeks for redfish, right?
Yeah, definitely. So you're
More
just
or
calling
less.
it reverse because you're off the bank, throwing back towards the surf or back towards the bank is the reverse part
Right.
of it.
Yep,
Gotcha.
exactly. And I don't know, that's just what they call it, you know. I guess it's just
Yeah,
another
yeah.
nickname for it, but you know,
Like
it's
I said, I
different
love
than
learning the different names
yeah.
of things.
So that's what everybody calls it. I mean sometimes you get into some of the boulder fields and you know, like we'll go through a propeller or two a year. Just trying to
Yeah.
get closer in, you know.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. It's a crazy
Pushing it a
thing.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it goes on the Roanoke too, man. They jack with the flow of the river up there so much. And so you'll be fishing, way upriver. So pretty much there's the boat ramp, and then right above the boat ramp, there's like at certain flows like a class 4 rapid. And if the water's high enough, you can, run up it no problem. Like when I got there this year for the guide season, you didn't even have to think about rocks. You could go wherever you want and fish wherever you want and do whatever you want. And so all the fish were upriver. And even when they drop it way down the flow, a lot of fish still sit up there, and you're fishing like you're trout fishing, or for like brown trout and rainbows. It's like picking apart little seams and eddies behind rocks, and all. It's super fun, and you're catching striper like that. And so you're all whenever they drop that water, those fish are sitting up in the fast water just above the ramp. Feeding on those fish are sitting there to eat. They're not going to go hang out in that stuff just to hang out. They're going to push up into that to feed on disoriented bait fish and then come back to the slower water. And so it's like you're constantly just pushed to like flirt with disaster by running up there. It's like boulders and crap everywhere. It's like, how big are your balls? Can you make it up above the rocks and go fish for the day? Because going up's not that bad, but it's when you turn around and come back and you have no control of your boat, really, that's when you're going to get in trouble. So
can't win if you don't play, right?
Exactly.
we fish areas.
Yeah, we push the envelope a little bit.
Oh, we do it. We do in some of the river systems that we fish here. A lot of these guys run jet drives, so that you can get up in some of these shallows and fish in these rocky areas. And just some people just can't get up there because of them. Up by these dams and stuff, and it's crazy. And it's like, do you just have enough balls to get the boat up in there, man? Are you gonna, it's the same as when I'm reverse surf casting. I mean, do you have the balls to get up that close, man? Are you gonna be in the middle of the night and come down on a big boulder? Well, hey, it is what it is, But I could put that next 50-pound fish on the boat. You know what I'm saying? And it is what it is. As long as I don't have anybody else with me.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys in Rhode Island, man, that have a lot of balls that when that kayak game got big, westerly striper fishing from shore is like, or offshore is, it's a pretty big deal right now. And these guys get in there, and if they want to ride and take the chances, I mean, they're pulling out big fish. I mean, I'm going out there and watching at least 3 or 4 kayakers every single night in front of Quaney or Weekapaug or, Tenapatri, that stretch. There's always guys out there. And it's just, they got some big balls, man. I mean, those swells get up to 3, 4, 5 footers, and they start breaking and knocking around. But you get in there, man, these guys go for a sleigh ride. They get some big fish.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm jealous a lot of times some of the rock structures that we have around here. The guys that kayak fish do really, really well on the tog and the sheep's head and some of those other fish that want to hang in that tight structure. Because, with a kayak, you can get right up against those rocks. Like if I take my boat right up against the rocks, even a light swell pushes the side of my boat and I'm going to, jack my fiberglass up on a rock. But you can kind of bump around on a kayak a little bit. I think, the areas I see the kayaks excel big time are in the really shallow stuff where you can get out and just drag it across a sandbar or a flat. And then that stuff where you're really tight to structure and then need to fish really tight to structure. And you can do that with a kayak really well. Like that's one of the reasons I want to get a kayak is just to fish our jetties better. Go out and fun fish myself. And it's pretty much impossible to catch a sheep's head in the summertime off our jetties from a boat. But if you guys will catch 20 in a day on a kayak just because you've got to be right on top of them.
Oh, definitely. The accessibility of a kayak, like before moving to Virginia, it never made sense to me. But running the river on a kayak versus trying to run the river on a boat, it clicked. I mean, I can get into holes and places and get over riffles that you just can't take a boat unless you've got a glass bottom jet boat. So,
Right.
I mean, you can literally just creep into wherever you want to go and fish it how you want to fish it. So,
you really can.
So with the kayak, and you see like the new new canoe and stuff like that. Like, that's like a huge thing down there?
Kayak fishing is getting really big, man. With the pedal drive, it's just opened up, your range to be able to go and fish stuff a little bit further away. Also, your ability to fish. Like the cool thing about a pedal drive kayak, a kayak slows you down. You start picking water apart a lot better. You start realizing, oh, there are fish in this little pocket, in this zone, on this edge. And with a pedal drive, you can fish the whole, like as soon as you hit the water, you're fishing because you're moving the boat with the pedals, throwing a topwater plug or some type of search bait. You can work fast and just cover water really well. It's blown up like crazy. And, I don't know if y'all have seen it. I think it's Old Town just came out with they partnered with Minn Kota, and they're doing like an Old Town Minn Kota trolling motor kayak. So it's got like this insert where the pedal drive would go, but it's a little mini trolling motor, which is pretty crazy.
Wow. That's going to change it up a lot.
It's
will.
crazy. Some of these kayaks got better electronics on them than I do on my skiff boat. Like, I just don't understand. Like, you drive by these guys, they got 14-inch Lowrance side imaging, and you're like, dude, you're on a kayak, bro. But I mean, it's insane. I mean, I think it's evolutionized the whole fishery when it comes to kayak fishing, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely opened up a lot more people to fishing. I think there's kayak guys now. Like there's specifically like groups, surf casting clubs. There's kayak clubs. I mean, these guys are just, it's a big deal. It's growing big.
Oh yeah. It's I've got a buddy here who's from up in New York, who he makes his whole living kayak fishing. Do y'all know Elias V Fishing? Are y'all familiar with him? His YouTube channel?
yeah, I've seen some of it.
He's a kayak fisherman, and he's got the big GPS on his kayak and everything too.
Yep.
But the dude freaking crushes it on the near shore wrecks here. I mean, catching sheep's head, bull, redfish, tog. I mean, the way that you can really slowly sit there and move, because you couldn't do this on any other vessel. Maybe you could do it and have someone else fishing, but to be able to creep across a piece of structure in 60 feet of water and drop a bait down and kind of fish along the edge of a wreck or the edge of a ledge or something like that is really something you can only do in a kayak, because you can control yourself with the pedal drive and drop that bait down there and move real slow. So it just opens up this style of fishing that you really can't do on anything else.
Exactly.
So, and all y'all, I was unfamiliar. Are all y'all kayak fishermen or just
more
a
or
couple
less
of you?
me.
Gotcha.
I started off kayak fishing. I had bought a heritage redfish when I had first started. And I was probably, oh man, it's got to be 12 years now.
You're dating yourself.
Yeah. So I started in a kayak when I started saltwater fishing hard. And then I don't know, I got into boats and fishing reefs and catching big fish. And I just kind of like got away from it. But
That's all right.
Started for me.
I'm going to drag them back down here, and I'm going to put them down the river in a nice Jackson, a good Coosa HD or something, and really let them experience what modern kayak fishing is, and see if I can change their mind.
I think you can.
Yeah, it's not going to be hard.
I mean,
my only complaint about kayak fishing is having to sit the whole time. I mean, you can stand up a little bit, but my balance is, I guess, okay. But whenever I stand in a kayak, man, I'm like, I'm going swimming.
Well, see, and that's why I like the actual fishing kayaks, like the Coosa HDs, some of the different stuff Jackson has, some of the other brands have come out with the lawn chair style sit on top. Yeah. And it's almost impossible to go over on them. Like, gotcha. Once you're comfortable, you can go through Class 3 rapids and it doesn't even phase you. You're like, oh, where's the hardest line? It's fun. So because you just get comfortable. But now if you're talking the old cheap Walmart sit inside, things like that, yeah, those get real iffy. So
Yeah.
if you pick the right equipment, it gets a lot easier.
Yeah. That's, as fishermen and hunters, it's all about the gear. I think at the end of the day, that's like 50% of the reason we do it is because we were obsessed with buying the gear, the kayak and the
I
rods and the
think
rigs.
you're 100% right.
Yeah, it's like, how many more guns can I get? I'd got rid of my gun safe because I just got to start keeping my guns in my closet. I can't fit them all in my gun safe anymore. So.
Right.
But you get the thing is with hunting and fishing, you get what you pay for. So if you pay for crap, you're going to pay 3 times, and you're going to pay the same amount as if you just bought the right thing right off the start. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like if you go cheap out, then you're going to buy the cheap thing 3 times to pay for the thing you should have just bought it the first time. And done it right.
Exactly. Yeah, quality gear is key. And you see it a lot in fishing as well. Like you get a crappy reel, and all reels are gonna, spinning reels are gonna end up fishing saltwater. They're gonna jack up on you eventually. But there are some like sneaky little buys. Like I was buying this $45 Daiwa Revros that I think is Revos or Revros for trout fishing, and those little reels held up for like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes you'll buy like a Shimano Stratic, which typically hold up better or whatnot. And they'll start grinding a little bit after a few months, but it all comes to taking care of it, but definitely like that you get what you pay for. I know I'm completely contradicting what we both just said, but
no, of course it's like the Fluger President. I don't know if you ever fished with one of those.
Yeah.
I think everyone's got one of those.
They last forever, dude. Like you could fish that thing. I don't care. You could fully submerge it and the thing still fishes perfect. It's like you find those one-ups,
Yeah, it's like the Apple iPhone. It's like they're made to break eventually, so you go buy a new one.
Exactly.
Right.
Like cell phones.
Knowing your gear and having trusty gear, it provides you knowing what kind of fish you can actually set into and fight and actually, land. Some guys that don't know exactly what to use or the right things or, the right buy, it's not always everything that is expensive is what you need, so just knowing your gear can make you just that much more successful in, targeting different fish.
Definitely. Yeah. Knowing your gear is so important. And like you said, when fighting fish too, like knowing how much pressure I can put on a tarpon with 20-pound, class tippet before I break them off, and understanding like how much you can tighten your drag down where you're still going to get the right amount of, release as a fish surges. You're not going to break the fish off. There's stuff that, that really comes into play with those nicer reels when you're fighting larger fish, the drag and the startup inertia of your drag and all that kind of stuff that you're paying for that you're not going to get in a cheap reel.
Absolutely.
You were talking about trout, and when I think trout, I'm thinking rainbow, brook trout, so on and so forth. But your trout fishing is totally different from what we're thinking up here.
Yeah, I'm talking speckled trout, and I love freshwater trout fishing as well, but I'm talking speckled trout, sea trout, and sea trout's kind of a term that's used for a lot of different types of trout, but speckled trout is what we have here, and North Carolina is actually an incredible speckled trout fishery, and we saw that this year with just huge numbers of fish. And honestly, I'm a firm believer that as of right now, North Carolina, I'm going to get a little political here for a second, but if that's cool, but North Carolina is not a destination fishery right now as far as saltwater goes. Like no one's really traveling to North Carolina to, because we've got, it's an incredible fishery, but our problem is we're the only state in the United States that still allows inshore gill netting. And so what you can do is, commercial fishermen can go set 300 yards of gill net a night and during the day too. And they've got these quotas, these super high quotas. And so I just watched us go from the most trout we've ever had in our inshore waters this year to nothing because they were all taken out by gill nets this year. But people, and you talk to people from Louisiana, Texas, Florida, I've talked to a lot of people, people would be traveling. If we got gill nets out of the water today in 3 years, North Carolina, the Pamlico Sound would be the place to go to catch, world-class gator speckled trout, like, 12, 13-pound speckled trout.
Jeez,
they just can't make it through all the nets. There's just so many nets. And same with our red fishery and our flounder fishery. They would both be, as good as anywhere else on the coast if we didn't have the nets. It just really, really depletes our resource. And I get a lot of flack for speaking up for that because it's such a, inset heritage here that people still want to net fish. But, you talk to any other state and look at the success stories of them getting nets out of the inshore waters, and it's just, astronomical.
Oh,
So
I'm 100% with you on that. Just curious, from your understanding or knowledge, has anybody brought up anything to, try to change some of those laws or restrict them a little bit?
Yeah, we're constantly trying. There's different organizations, CCA being one of the biggest ones, and they're pretty hated in North Carolina now. Because they've been around for so long and there hasn't been much change is kind of the basis of it. But everybody's trying. And there's always, changes to the bill proposed. And, we just keep getting voted down, and the commercial lobbyists have a lot of financial backing. And so that's kind of where we're at.
Damn.
We can't, like other states, I forget the terminology, can just put it up to a public vote and vote it out. But North Carolina's not set up that way. So it has to be voted through the board of Marine Fisheries Commission board.
Gotcha.
Has to vote. And it hasn't panned out. We've had some changes, like we shut down, you couldn't keep flounder for like the past year here in North Carolina because we overfished the southern flounder population so hard. And so that was we kind of handled it the wrong way, but it was good to see a step towards conservation taken by our state. And I think we're going to see a change. If we don't see a change in 5 years, we're pretty screwed as far as the redfish and trout go.
Right.
We can still get it back right now, but if we keep doing what we're doing, it's going to be rough.
And so the flounder that you have, you don't have a big population, and that's what I was going to ask. Are the gill nets messing up the flounder also?
Oh yeah, the gill nets. The big thing that gill nets hurt are flounder, speckled trout, and redfish. There's two different sizes.
Game fish.
The three biggest game fish, and there's different size mesh nets. But the smaller nets, they kill the smaller fish. Like it's killing redfish and speckled trout. They're mullet nets for hardhead mullet, but like small redfish are dying in them. Small speckled trout and small flounder are dying in them. So it's rough. But what was your question again there? You were saying?
Oh, no. I was just the kind of flounder that you had down there.
Oh yeah. So we've got three different species here. We've got the southerns, the summers, and the gulfs. And we've got tons of summers during the summertime, and we've got tons of gulfs during the summertime. So everyone was catching a ton of flounder this year when they shut the season down. But the southerns, our breeding stock of flounder, our type of flounder, we have very few of. And so people were real pissed off because they're like, I've had my best flounder year ever, but it was all, people were catching 90% southern or summers and gulfs instead of southerns.
And the summers, those are more or less fluke, right? That's what they call them?
Yeah, those are fluke. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes. That's the same up here. We're having a problem with them. And the reason we're having a problem with them is not the gill nets, but our draggers, our commercial draggers.
That's a whole other thing.
What's that?
I said that's a whole other big issue is the trawling and the dragging.
So when we had started, it was, this was probably 10, 15 years ago, was they weren't allowed within 10 miles of the coast, right?
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Then it went into 5 miles.
Then to 1.
It went into 3. And then now it's 1. Oh, no, it was 1. Now it is no limit. So they can literally come onto our beaches. They can come onto everything. So like anything that could have made it through them at 10, 15 miles is now getting completely decimated. And the problem is now they're killing all of our herring, all of our squid, all of their bycatch. They're just decimating everything that we have here.
These guys are like
back of a tailbag's dead.
Yeah,
and they're 7 boats in a row, staggered, raking back and forth. It's obsessive. You got what they're doing to the waters is pretty intense.
Yeah, it's brutal. And not only does it kill those fish, it just flattens the bottom. Any oyster rocks that were there, any type of humps or anything like that. Over time, they're just dragging it flat, and just killing all the habitat along with the fish.
That's why everyone's wondering there's no lobsters in Rhode Island in certain areas anymore. Like it's because of all the dragging over and over and over. There's a lot of piles that have been pretty much raked out.
Yeah, it's tough. It's super tough. It's you know, it's easy to point our fingers at it. It's like, we've allowed it for so long. We've got ourselves in so much trouble with it. It's like, how do you backtrack? That's the hard question. It's like, do we just take these jobs from all these guys? It's like, it's easy to just say it from our point as rec fishermen, like, let's, get rid of gill nets and get rid of, but it's like, at the end of the day, if it's a resource that we're depleting and we're going to eventually destroy, I think it should be more important than a job, a natural resource that is going to be gone. In my opinion, maybe I'm too much of a hippie, but
no, there has to be a way to have
in my opinion,
that.
There is no difference between the kind of work that is going towards the desert bighorn sheep or the Dall sheep or any of them, their migration patterns, recovering elk, recovering turkey, because of the stuff that we've done that screwed up their habitat, from the same situation in the water. Why are we not doing the same amount of work to cut down some of this overkill and some of the environment, just we'll say destruction, and start trying to restore these numbers in a conservative manner, the way we have big game? I mean, it's the same thing. It's just in the water.
Yeah, and I feel like it's easier to take from the water because it's not, you don't really see what's down there. It's easy
exactly.
to be like, and so it's just these studies we do on population are just so important to pay attention to, and people are, just because you're catching a lot of flounder this year doesn't mean that the population's doing great. That's the tough thing that the general public doesn't understand is. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. The overall study of what's going on is the important thing to look at.
Well, that goes back really well into what we were talking about earlier with turkey season. So y'all down there and us up here in Virginia had a really rough season. Well, if you think about it, 2 years ago, we had all those heavy rains that flooded everything out, and they wiped out nests. We were missing that normal pile of 2-year-old birds that we normally have. And that's your most commonly killed bird is a 2-year-old. So with them around,
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, you didn't see satellite birds because 2 years ago there wasn't a hatch, so there aren't satellite birds. You have dominant birds and you have hens. Yeah. So it's the same thing. You wipe out a year's worth of spawn, and what are you going to have come fishing season?
Yeah, not much.
And this is where it goes into like the striped bass. So what's your regulations on striped bass?
So it just depends on the river and depends on the system that you're fishing them in. So the Cape Fear River, which is my home river, if you will, my home coastal river, you can't keep any. And it's sad because 70 years ago, it was the 4th strongest striper migration to spawn on the East Coast. Then we overfish the herring down here. There's not a single fish that comes back in our river anymore. So all the fish we still have in our river are stocked fish. And what happened was they overfished the herring and they put in these lock and dam systems. So the fish couldn't get up to the gravelly substrate to spawn. So they'd get up there to that lock and hang out there, and they probably would, false spawn, and the eggs wouldn't do anything. And so that whole, line of fish just doesn't exist anymore. And then we had a really good comeback. We put in a fish ladder, had a really good comeback of fish. You could go out and catch 20, 30 fish in a day here on the Cape Fear. And now we had Hurricane Florence, I guess, 2-3 years ago. And the pig farms that are all up on the upper ends of the Cape Fear River flooded out. And all that pig waste got in the rivers and just killed all our stripers. Killed a bunch of largemouth bass, a bunch of catfish, but like our striper fishing got crushed. And there's still fish to be caught. You can still go out and have a decent day, but you're really working for them. But so that being said, you can't keep any on the Cape Fear. There's the Neuse River is another popular one to target striper on. You can't keep any there right now. That one I don't really understand because you can go up there and just crush them pretty good. There's a lot of fish in there. I think they'll probably open that one back up. The Roanoke, you can keep 2 fish a day between 18 and 22 inches, and then 1 over 27. And then as far as I know, that's it. You can keep fish out in the Sound and the Pamlico and the Albemarle Sounds. and the salt water. But I think it follows that same size limit as the 18 to 22 and 1/27.
Okay. You see, so for us, and I just like to hear it, like, it's just a good thing to know because, like, those are the migrating fish that, well, we might not see them, they're that south, but like the ones that come out of Maryland and the Chessie and so on and so forth, those are the migratory fish to us. And our regulations just went from 28 to 36, but it used to be just 28 and over we could keep, but they're not allowing us to kill the big fish. And I think going back with everything, like, and these winter holdover fish, we have these guys going in there. Maybe it's like the Roanoke. They just go in there and they pound on these fish. And these are holdover fish. These are our breeding fish, and they're just going
Right.
in there sticking 150 fish a day. And you're telling me that every single one of them is going to live every time? Like, they get messed up or so on and so forth. And these guys are just really hammering on them, and that's what's killing a lot of our breeding fish or our beginning of
Yeah.
our fish. So they're knocking off a whole entire generation of fish. And then now we're having problems with them. And a lot of it, I mean, listen, there's 101 different things that add up to make it a bad population. Like with the guys with the gill nets and the guys that are, dragging and killing all the herring and all the bunker and all the other stuff out of the rivers aren't coming into the rivers and so on and so forth, and it's moving fish off. But I was just
Right.
interested to know like what your regulations are and so on and so forth. Because a lot of those fish that you're catching, like in the Roanoke and stuff, those are holdover fish, right?
Holdover meaning they stay in that river.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, no, there's a few fish that stay in the river, but most of them will stay in the Albemarle Sound for the summer. So they'll drop back out into the Sound and hang out, and then come back up. But the bigger fish, those 28 and up inch fish, so a lot of those are known to go out in the ocean and head north.
Okay.
But yeah, you have a large group of fish and I'm not I could be slightly wrong on that information, but not they catch a few fish in the river during the summer, but not a ton. That river gets real. They drop the water like crazy on it in the summertime, and so I think that's why a lot of those fish leave. But what do you know what the main size class is for like the best breeding striper? I'm unfamiliar of what that might be.
Off the top of my head, I really don't know, to be honest with you. They're saying that it's anything over. They're saying here now over 36 inches.
Is a big breeder female?
Is our big breeder
when they're
females
able
are
to
like,
start breeding, I think is like their potential is like 36 to 42. After that, they're full breeding females at that point.
Gotcha.
So I think that's the biggest from my knowledge. And they did this about 10 years ago, maybe even longer in Connecticut, where they did a slot fish. But that was still when we were able to keep 2 stripers. But now they changed it. How many years ago? 5-6 years ago that we were able to keep 1, Trev?
Yep.
And then now we have that slot. So yeah, I mean, they don't want us keeping any big breeding fish that's been around for, some of these fish have been around for a long time. And even if it's catch and release and we're targeting them, a lot of them die after we catch them too, because they're so big and so old. But
and you're beating them up.
there's 30 draggers out there, and every big fish that hits that net, they're gonna die too. So it's just, I guess they're trying to do whatever they can to keep the population growing, but they're it's just.
And one of the biggest problems that we had here was we have the EZZ mark, which is 3 miles off of our coastal line. And one of those areas you can't fish, but you can catch and release there. So you can't possess stripers and you can't technically target them, but we'll have 75 to 100 boats out there every single night. And that's where all of our big fish are. I mean, they're putting 15, 20, 30 bass over 40 pounds in the boat. Some fish up to 70 pounds a night per boat. And they're extinguishing them, because that's a big fish, and you're fighting in a big current, and you're killing these fish, and these guys are catching them, and a lot of the charter boats go there, and they're really hammering on these fish. And
yeah, and you pull them out of the water, you get a picture, and they're it's like I always tell people, when you catch a fish, it's like they're fighting a marathon. It's like, imagine running a marathon, and then as soon as you're done with it, somebody shoves your head under the water. That's the exact same thing that's happening to those big fish, and people pull them out of the water and hold them out of the water for a long time for a picture. So that's a great way to when people hear that, they're always like, "Oh, dang, that's true. That's exactly what it's like for them," and it kind of puts it in perspective. But So my question about the breeding size class there was because, a lot of these places where you can keep those fish over 28 or like a fish over 25, it's crazy to me because I always kill up quite a few fish during, or just for myself. When I'm up there guiding, I'll kill, for 3 or 4 nights in a row, I'll eat striper because it's really good and it's all I get to eat all year. And I'll kill those smaller ones, those, 18, 19, 20-inch fish. And even the females that are that size, I don't know if maybe their eggs don't do anything, but those females that are 21, 22 inches, they've got a ton of eggs in them. And you got to imagine that a 25-inch fish has, even more eggs. And so there's definitely striper that are female striper that are, and that's that smaller size they definitely still at least carry eggs. I don't know if their eggs do anything, but they're definitely carrying lots of eggs.
Wow.
We just started a initiative here. I partnered up with CCA and, it was more so just CCA and Ice Strike Fishing, which is like a jig company down here. And it's called Release Over 20. So we just launched that, and it's talking about the importance of releasing speckled trout over 20 inches. Because even like a 20-inch speckled trout over an 18-inch speckled trout has like almost 20,000 more eggs or 50,000 more eggs or something like that. That it's going to, be able to lay as opposed to an 18-inch fish. So you got to think like, a 60-inch striper as opposed to if you let people keep an 18 or 22-inch striper, you're not doing nearly as much harm to them as killing a bigger one. So,
see, I would like if we could keep a bunch of fish under 28 inches because they only allow us 228. I mean, they started doing like an initiative where you could keep short fish. So they give you short tags. You get 2 of them per season. And there was a limited amount of them. And I would rather see them catch fish and keep them under 28 and let the other big ones go. Because you're right, killing
definitely.
a 15-inch fich, that's a big breeding fish. How many eggs does that thing have? How much offspring could that thing have? You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
I'd rather, and especially for the table fare, I don't want to keep a fish that's over 36 inches. It tastes like crap anyways. It's disgusting.
No, those little schoolies are where it's at, man. The little,
they're
16 to 20-inch fish are the best ones to eat.
We call them striped trash because they
Trash.
Yeah, because they're just I mean, you could get them anywhere and everywhere, man. Like I've caught them on just the craziest things in the world when they're that thick, and they're just there's so many of them, and the big ones taste like crap, man. And everybody on all these charters that comes out with us, they're like, oh yeah, we want a 40-pounder, we want a 50-pounder, and I'm like, dude, what are you gonna do with that? It tastes like garbage. I mean, do you really? I mean, you don't go out into the pasture and say, "Oh, I want the biggest." Well, you do. Never mind. You're not gonna like. You're not gonna. Never mind.
There's better
equate to beef.
Yeah,
there's better.
I know what you're saying, though.
Yeah,
I don't want
that old. I don't want that big Jersey cow. Like just. I don't know. That went the wrong way. Sorry.
No, I'm with you.
Swing and a miss.
Those bigger fish are never as good.
The speckled trout that you have down there, we have a similar, very vague, like weak fish is pretty close to that, but like the taste of speckled trout is just the desire and demand. That's why people are out there out fishing them because it's freaking awesome to eat. Do you target those and eat them as well?
Yeah, I love eating them, man, and I love. Like I said, I try to keep the. Golly, we're talking about so many sizes here. I'm trying to remember what our trout size is now. But it's 14 inches. It's got to be over 14 inches to keep it, and that's a small fish. But I like to keep those 17 and 18-inch fish. Anything over 20 inches, I'm letting them go. But those trout are delicious, man, and in the fall they're really easy to catch. It's really easy to catch a lot of those fish, and so it's fun for people to be able to go out there and target those fish and be able to, bring supper home for their families, which I think is really cool. And my kind of whole argument behind the whole conservation thing, I got a buddy, Ray Britton, who's a charter captain here as well. And he'd be a great guy for y'all to have on the podcast too. Just really fun to listen to. And especially when he gets a couple beers in him. But he said, man, if the taxpayer can't go out, like we were talking about the flounder fishing, if like the everyday taxpayer, so like the true owner of the resource, isn't allowed to go out and target a fish, go catch a flounder to bring home and cook for dinner for him and his son and his wife, then like why do we still allow guys to go out there and wrap them up with gill nets? One person to benefit from the resource as opposed to all these people could benefit to go bring home one fish instead of we're letting, this one guy go kill hundreds and thousands of fish a year. So that's kind of my take on it all. But every time you ask me a question about anything, I've been going back to conservation, but I guess I'm passionate.
No, you got to be,
No,
man. We're the stewards of the land. We're the front lines of the conservation, man. Like as hunters, we know what that conservation side is, and then we drag it into the fishing side of it.
For sure. And that's a whole nother can of worms. There is trying to tell people that you're all about conservation, but you're a hunter.
We're the front lines of it.
I know people are like, so you're telling me you're going to go out there and shoot those ducks, but you care more about conservation of wetlands than I'm like, yeah, heck yeah. I care about it because I realize the importance of it because I'm out there in it every day,
Exactly.
So,
we spend the most money in it. So
yeah,
definitely.
That's it.
Definitely.
Speaking of conservationists and being the steward of the land, man, what drives you outdoors?
What drives me outdoors?
Yeah, what drives you outdoors?
What do I love about it? Why do I want to be out there?
What's your drive? What makes you want to be out there and doing it?
Man, that's a good question. One, I hate being indoors, and two, I just think growing up with my dad, like my dad was an outdoorsman. He wasn't as avid of an outdoorsman as I am, but just the memories I had with him sitting in a deer stand, and being outside, just seeing those things that not everyone gets to see. Like the other day, I was off the beach and, or this was a while back, but there was some right whales out there, surfacing and slapping their tails around. And, like on the Roanoke River the other day, like two bald eagles flying together and just cool stuff that, you're not going to see if you sit on your butt on the couch watching TV. I just am a firm believer of like, we were made to be outside. We were made to be, in nature. And I want to, raise or have a family of, I want my kids to be outside. And, I don't know. I just think that there's so many parts of it. But the big one is it's a lot more interesting than inside.
Yeah, I love it. It runs in your blood. It seems like, man.
It runs in my blood.
Awesome.
It runs in my blood.
Man, that really sums it up. That's what it's about, and we can all relate to that because I know talking to these guys, some of the stuff that we see, whether we're on the water or in the woods, is just insane. You wouldn't believe some of the stories unless you were there to see it for yourself. So that's really a wonderful point to drive home. Can't thank you enough for jumping on here with us. And real quick before we let you go, where can everyone find you?
Right on. I need to streamline this a little bit more, but my personal Instagram is Judd Brock at Judd Brock Fishing, and then my everything as far as social media goes is like content goes. That's my podcast and my YouTube channel is going to be Eastern Current Fishing, so you can look that up on YouTube or any of the podcast platforms, and then Instagram as well. But Judd Brock Fishing and Eastern Current Fishing are the two ways to find me.
Okay, and that's a good way for them to get a hold of you for your guide service as well?
Well, that one's different. That one's easternangling.com.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
I know. I'm trying to get it all. I'm trying to get it all more streamlined. There's way too many names going on.
Hey, that's all right. You got it going, and that's a lot further than a lot of people get. So, congrats on that.
Thank you, man. It'll be more streamlined eventually. But yeah, Judd Brock Fishing, Eastern Current Fishing, and Eastern Angling.
Nice.
Yep.
Well,
thank you all for having me on, man. It's been fun. It's always it's cool to be at the other side of the podcast sometimes.
Yeah. Well, like you said earlier, it's harder on your end than it is on ours.
Right.
But Judd, we can't thank you enough for joining on and giving us some of your information. It was good to do the comparison between some of the Northeast stuff, some of what you're doing, some of what we got out in the inland. It's just really good information, and I hope everyone gets something from it. And for everybody out there that's following along, we want to thank you guys for taking the ride right here on the Outdoor Drive.